Let's bring in Labor MP Daniel Mulino, Chair of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Economics. And Daniel Mulino, this low unemployment rate, given where inflation is this good news or bad news?
Oh, hi, Andrew, and thanks for having me on. Well, look, it's good news, and obviously I think everybody welcomes the fact that there are more jobs being created. As you indicated, we also have to think about what's the trajectory of the economy and what's it likely to be as we move towards inflation returning to its 2 to 3% band. And as we've discussed before, what we're on is this narrow path where we're trying to, both as a government and also the government acting in light of what monetary policy is likely to do over the next few months, what we're trying to achieve is see inflation continue to come down, but for there to be the least impact on unemployment as we can manage. And what we've seen over the last 6 months or so is that inflation has come down materially. It came down from 8.4%, I think it was in December of last year, to 5.6% in the last monthly reading. We're getting another inflation reading next Wednesday. And during that 6-month period, we've seen unemployment really not change much. So that's a welcome sign. We've been managing to see inflation come down and not see a surge in unemployment. But I think really what the RBA is going to be looking at most closely is going to be next Wednesday's read.
Sure, this makes it more likely, though, there'll be a rate rise next month. I know you're about to say the CPI figure obviously has an impact on that, but given Michelle Bullock's comments, there needs to be higher unemployment for inflation to come down. It does mean there's more of a risk of a rate rise, doesn't it?
Well, look, I think Michelle's comments, have been taken a little bit out of context. When I looked at Michelle's comments, and not just those comments, but also the interactions that I've had with the RBA over the last year or so in the public hearings of the House Economics Committee and also other interactions, really what she was referring to was the fact that when you raise interest rates, or when the RBA raises interest rates, part of what they're trying to achieve is a moderation in aggregate demand across the economy as a key lever in trying to bring down inflation. Now, the government's modelling and the RBA's modelling, and indeed all of the other private sector models out there, forecast that in order to get inflation down from the level it was at last year down to the 2 to 3% band, it was likely that unemployment would increase a bit. And if you look at the budget forecasts, there's a number in there, 4.5% at its highest level, and I think the RBA's forecasting was around the same level. So all that she was reflecting was the fact that we do expect that there'll be, at some point in this trajectory, an increase in unemployment. But obviously, if we can keep seeing inflation come down and unemployment not go up, that's the best narrow path for us to wander down.
All right, I'm going to pull up the state-by-state figures now, and I won't require you to remember them, Daniel Mulino, but I'll just point out to you that there's a bit of a discrepancy there. I mean, the New South Wales figure 2.9% says to me there aren't enough workers to fill positions. I'm sure you will agree with that. South Australia, on the other hand, is a bit of a concern because it's at 4.2, and really the 4.5 forecast is for the end of the financial year in the budget papers. So why is there that discrepancy between the New South Wales figure and the South Australian figure, for example?
Well, look, first caveat I would add is that you've always got to be a bit careful in interpreting state-by-state breakdowns. You're always subject to numbers at the state level that are a bit more volatile and, frankly, have larger error bounds. But look, I think based on that number of 2.9, plus probably some other numbers that are out there, I think the labour market in New South Wales being quite tight wouldn't be a surprise to a lot of people. But that's also reflected in the fact that the government is undertaking a whole range of measures. For example, we're going to see significant increases in the number of skilled migrants coming into the country, which will help to offset some of those labour shortages in particular areas. We're also seeing significant investment in skills right across the spectrum, but including a lot of increases in free TAFE places. So these are key ways in which we're looking to deal with particular areas where there might be labour shortages. And look, if there are other states where the numbers are a bit higher, again, there's always going to be a bit of interstate variance. But even something starting with a 4 in front of it, something in the low 4s, by historical standards is still pretty low.
Indeed it is. Well, particularly when you someone who went to university in the early 90s like me, you thought you'd never see better than 6%. So there you go. A lot of people watching today would be...
I wish I was as young as you.
Would be amazed at these figures. I'm sorry to hear you could possibly be older. Now, the opposition keeps saying you're spending too much. Just finally, they're saying you're spending too much and that's driving up inflation. And they just keep hammering away at this, don't they? Even though you've produced a surplus. So what is your response to that? Yeah,
well, I think firstly, I'd say, look at the actual numbers just on their face. Firstly, we achieved something in the order of just under 40 billion in saves in the October and May budgets. They achieved something in the order of $0 in their last budget. So the saves are a big part. The other significant part is the what we did with the temporary fiscal uplift in the last two budgets. And over 85% of that went to the bottom line, which doesn't just help the situation right now and get us into surplus, but it materially reduces debt and helps us with our interest payments down the track. But then also, if you don't trust me and my interpretation, look at what all of the experts are saying. We had the big four banks come to my committee last week, and all of the CEOs reiterated what all of their chief economists had said in late May and early June, which is that our budget was broadly neutral. And that's the right position to be at the moment. You have a budget that's broadly neutral. That allows you to put in place material cost of living supports for those most vulnerable in the community, and it's not making the RBA's job harder. So it's not just us saying this, it's also the vast majority of pundits and experts out there.